Hello, everyone. My name is Barbara Armstrong. I am a coach with Charles Schwab, and today we are going to talk about the Monitor tab on thinkorswim. So, if you're an investor that likes to check your positions on a regular or maybe not so regular basis, or particularly if you're an active trader, this is going to be a tab that you spend a lot of time on. So, there are some tips and little things that I have learned over the years that I would love to share with you today. So let's get right to it. Know that if you are not following me on X, consider this your invitation to do so. My handle at Barb Armstrong CS. You can also now find me on LinkedIn. And just before we get into the thinkorswim platform, we are using the paper money software application on the thinkorswim desktop platform today. So it mimics the live platform. There are some nuances and differences. One is that short positions will never be assigned early, but this is a brilliant place to learn, hone your skills, make sure you understand how the platform works before you consider trading in your live account. Okay, so when we look at the platform, and here is our monitor tab, and we're going to spend most of our time on activities and positions with a short visit over to the account statement. But when you first download thinkorswim, all of your positions will show up in this one group named unallocated. And I kind of like to organize, or some traders like to organize their portfolio by type of trade. So we have a group here for growth stocks, a group here for shorter term trades, stocks with targets, one for buy right covered calls. And you might say, well, my account doesn't have any of that. How do I set that up? Well, we have two trades here, Johnson & Johnson and Coca-Cola, and these positions are both dividend stocks. So how do we create a dividend stock group or a new group? We're going to come up to position statement. There's two ways to do that. And then come over to these three bars, and we can just say, let's add a group, and we're going to call this dividend stocks. And we get this little drop-down menu, and I've just typed in dividend stocks and OK. And now we'll see that we have a group called dividend stocks. The other way that we can do this is we can just right-click on this position and say, move it to the group. And if we look at it and we say, oh, we don't have a stock dividend group, I'm going to just add a new group. Again, I get this little drop-down box, and let's call it stocks dividends. I like that better than dividend stocks. So I've got stocks for dividends, stocks for growth, stocks with targets. Now, I could have just renamed this dividend stock group by coming over here and clicking rename. But I was showing two ways to add a group, so I'm just going to delete this group that I've decided that I no longer want. And I'll get a little drop down that says, are you sure you want to get rid of dividend stocks? Yep, I'm sure. So it's gone. Now here's the default. So we can customize the categories that show up. And one of these categories here is days. Well, this stands for days to options expiration. And we don't need that. This is a stock position. But what we may want to have in our dividend stock subgroup is dividend yield. So we're going to get rid of days and remove that. And then we're going to add dividend yield. So we're going to add that. And we may also want to add something called net liquidating value. Now this I'm going to move up a little bit so we can reorder our columns. And then I'm going to come and say, I'd like to know, were I to sell this position now or the next trading day, what would it currently be worth? And so this is our net liquidating value. And this can be a handy piece of information to have. And so now we can see days is gone. We can see this currently pays a dividend yield of 2.47% and has a net liquidating value of $24,000. Now, we do have a second position in unallocated, and that's Coca-Cola. And so we may want to move that up to our dividend group as well. And we can say this one currently pays a dividend. Now with dividends, there's no guarantee that a dividend will continue to be paid by a company in the future, but this is what it's currently paying. Also, dividends aren't actually paid in a paper money account. When I talk about the differences between a paper money and a live account, that's one of them. But so we now have this group set up the way we want it. Now, one of the things you may notice is there's a little chiclet beside this with a sell order. So that represents a stop loss order. And most of these working orders here are either targets or stop loss orders or a combination thereof. So I've organized these by symbol, and we can see that we do not have an exit for Coca-Cola, but we do have one for J&J. We have this stop market order. Now, this doesn't guarantee that we'd get out at exactly the price requested, but we've got a stop in place. So if we say, well, I'd like to put a stop on Coke, we can right click on this order, create a closing order with a stop. And I'm just going to pick a number here, 73.72. Just to show you how easily it is to add a stop. And this is a stop market order. So again, were Coke to gap down, we might not get filled at this price. We could get filled at a lower price. But this is how we can add a stop loss to an order. And then when I come up here, now we've got a little chiclet in place. Now, if I drop down our growth tab, if you look at, say, this position, you might say, gee, that's a nice profit. When did I buy this stock? And we can do this on any position. We can right click and come down to view trades. And it says, oh, we bought this March 31st. So now you know when you bought the position. Okay. So that's another nice little feature that we have available here. Now, something else I want to point out. So if we come down to stocks with targets, and there's all kinds of groups available, so you may just want to have a look. So this one, it looks like we got rid of the days column, but we didn't add a net liquidating value. Our net liquidating value, or what is, it really shows us the size of our position. So we might want to add that. Another column that we can add, if we're looking at, do we have a bit of a balance between sectors, or how many sectors are represented? So we could just type in here sector and add that as a column. And we might want to, we can leave it here or we can move it. You can rearrange these however you like. But now we can see that we have several different sectors represented here. And this doesn't require that much room, but we can move our columns and snug them up a bit. And why might we want to do that? Well, we might come over here and say, well, we want to be sure we can read this entire name. So we can resize our columns also. Now, one last thing I want to show you is if we come down to our buy right covered calls, or if we were to look at our long call vertical, it just shows both legs of this trade, but it doesn't show it as a vertical. And this, we did a buy right covered call where we both bought 100 shares of stock and sold a call on the same day. So if you'd like the system to do some of the calculating for you, we can have in one fell swoop. We don't have to customize this by group. We can come up to position statement and arrange positions. And instead of going with the default of trade time, we can choose order. And now we can see that with this Western Digital position, it was a covered position where we bought the stock and sold the covered call at the same time. We got in for 254. The current price is 274. So we have an unrealized gain, and what the market giveth, the market can taketh away, of $2,066. And then if we come down and we look at this long call vertical, we can see that we bought this for $295. And it's currently trading for $240. So we're down 18% on this. And if you have a rule, and in our trading a smaller account class, our example rule is If it's down 50%, we exit, and we do that manually. And so we want to kind of keep our eye on this and look at it daily and say, hey, if this is up or down 50%, now there is a sell order in here, and that's for the target. And so, having this profit and loss percentage and then being able to see how much the net gain is without having to get our calculator out is pretty handy also. So I hope you have found this helpful. I have found some of these tricks to be, or these little tips to be, time savers for me. So thank you for spending a few minutes with me today on the monitor tab. Oh, the last thing I wanted to show you was account statement. So let's say you said, like, I know I had a position on Starbucks, but I've been on vacation for the last month and I haven't looked at my account much. So we could come back here and say, I know I placed it this year. It's currently April 3rd, so the beginning of April, and we can just type in any ticker symbol. And so I've typed in Starbucks. So we can see here that we bought Starbucks on February 3rd for $92.87. We sold it for March 11th for $101.51. And you might say, well, why did I decide to get out of it? Like, I wasn't even here. And so if you open your order history, you can see that there's a little kind of, it looks like a notepad. If we click on that, we can see that what we had done here is we had put in a stock trade with a target, and there was a target price and an exit price, or a stop loss order. And when it filled the target, it canceled the stop loss order. And we can look at that. So this is something where we're doing a postmortem. We've already entered and exited the position. But if we come to activities and positions, we can also see notes if we have them on our working orders. So we could come here to Cisco and click on this note, and it says, oh, this is a trade where our target is a swing target. We could do the same thing coming down here and looking at Marvell. Oh, so this is a target based on a different, a head and shoulders pattern. So anyway, my friends, I hope you have found this helpful. I've enjoyed spending a few minutes with you today. Stay tuned. Lots of great content coming your way in more short videos in our trade management mini sessions. Bye for now.